Hello and welcome. Yes, we are in the medieval times still, and it looks like William's going to get, well, executed. Will he or won't he? Will get executed. Will get executed. Anyway, housekeeping, go down to the description. That's the wordy bit. It's got loads of stuff in it. You can go and meet our partners, Grand Press and Odin Apparel. You can come and meet us at all the different groups on social media. There's the Lunatics on Facebook and X and Instagram and Blue Sky and just, whatever. So go do that, buy our books, do nice things, give us a little follow if you're on Spotify, maybe rate us if you want to. Anyway, I'm going to shut up because why am I speaking? Bye!
Sir Percy is a story to tell. William was punished and his soul sent to hell.
William Marshal. I stand next to Fenrir in front of the Count Perigord. He is raised on a dais before me, slumped in his throne. That's right, a throne. His legs dangle over an armrest as he leans his chin and chins on the other hand on the other armrest. The throne looks thrown together as though it was made by a blind man with a fret saw. It probably has some name for that style of furniture, but it is, I would say, the firewood period. Next to the Count is a fat and dowdy woman dressed in finery. The finery is too fine for her, and she looks like a pig who has been dressed up as a prank. I know I'm being cruel, but in this case, I'm being kind to her and unkind to the pig. By her side are some ladies of the court, and they are that common pretty. I know I'm in evil spirits, but the likelihood is that I am going to die. So the idea of being kind and happy is not foremost in my mind. I think that dying this day would be much more unkind to me in its own way. The cock, and what a cock he is, has got changed into an even more outlandish outfit. I keep on thinking that he cannot get any more cockish, but he is a surprising character because he can always up the cock in him. His makeup is now more than humorous. He is pale-faced with dark circles around his eyes. He has bright red lips, as though recently struck there. I mean, if this look is so important to him, I could have given him the two black eyes and a busted lip with great pleasure. I could have even drained that skinny, useless body of blood into the bargain to make him as pale as he wishes to be. Fenrir laughs at my thoughts. I would be quite unsettled, to be honest, if he was not here with me. It always feels better when you have your invisible giant wolf soul with you. Don't you find that? Oh, I'm sorry. Unlike me, you may not have one. The sorcerer, Ants in the Pants, stands next to the bishop. You can see that both he and the bishop are like that sky iron. You know the type. It has a special power of attraction and revulsion. These two characters are definitely being forced apart just by the power of revulsion for each other. The cock is pontificating. I had listened for the first few minutes, but then I got a little distracted by anything that I could get distracted by, because he was so boring. I was so bored I was. Don't mind telling you. I got distracted, even by my own breathing I did. He was listing things that I had done or was supposed to have done, and how awful I was as a person, and that I deserved to die. This is my fair trial, I think. The Count is bored, and had come to his decision on my fate about 3 months ago, long before he arrived here. Maybe they need to feel that they are doing this thing for some reason of righteousness or another. Who knows?
Will!
Says Fenrir, trying to get my attention. I was away thinking whether or not you could train woodworms to carve thrones like the one before me. It would make the production of furniture much easier, would it not?
Will!
Repeated the wolf. This time I answered, as he sounded quite perturbed he did. I turned to look at him. What is it? I asked him mentally.
That cock wants you.
He told me. I turned to see the cock in question in a dramatic pose. He stood tall, sighting down an arm and pointing a finger directly at me. He'd obviously asked a question. What that question was, though, What did he say? I asked the wolf, mentally.
Did you not hear?
He asked. No. Why otherwise would I be asking you? I said.
Now, you see, I could tell you what he asked, but it would be much more fun to see how you get him to repeat the question. I can't wait to see the effect that has on that big cockhead.
Thanks, old friend. I can always trust on you. I said with sarcasm. What is your plea? Said the cock, somewhat angrily. There were giggles from the soldiers and the court as they surrounded the scene. My plea? I asked, not understanding what he was asking for. It was difficult to listen to what he'd said next, as my invisible wolf friend was now rolling around next to me, laughing in my head. Your plea? The cock now shouted. I still didn't get it. The wolf next to me, whom only I could see, rolled to his belly and got a grip of himself.
Go on then, Will, I'll help you out. I think it's actually southern French slang for your final meal. Puis, then your punishment. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Said the wolf in my head. That's kind of you. Thank you. I said to the confused face of the cock. I'm rather fond of bread, mutton, and cheese. Simple fare, I know, but I like it. There was silence for a second. Then the cock went crazy. His rant was a thing to see. I think I could have taken offense if I could have understood anything that he was saying. The Count waved the man into silence. It was amusing to see that the herald had started to sweat and his makeup had begun to run. Several of his beauty spots had rolled down his face and hung from his chin like ticks on a cow's lip. No more of this nonsense. Are you or are you not guilty of killing my father and my little sister M? The Count asked. I looked at him with sudden understanding and looked down at my smirking wolf soul. Yes, wolves can smirk. You're a mooncalf, you are, I said to my Fenrir. Looking up and into the eyes of the Count, who was now sat up and leaning forward in his throne of sorts in excitement for my answer, I told him the truth I did. I killed neither. The well-trained members of the retinue gasped in shock at this blatant lie that was not that I had given as my answer. The Count smiled and nodded his head. I see, said the Count. The cock walked forward and was going to talk, but... Shut up, you! It came from the Count, and the cock took on the look of a told-off toddler. He actually pouted. I see, the Count repeated. And what is your plea when accused of taking my sister's head as a trophy? Again, a gasp of shock rose from the people of the well-trained court. Now, you must understand, it had seemed like a bloody good idea at the time. I mean, I'd taken her head because she had beautiful long blonde hair. It was a golden fleece as such, that I had been promised from the Count Perigord himself. Her father, you see. A golden fleece. When the Count dishonoured his own promise by reneging on our deal, I had simply taken her head for payment. That had been quite clever, had it not? The wolf, being the helpful thing that he was, said,
Oh, it was a bloody stupid thing to do, William.
He was so supportive. There was no easy way to say this. How do you make light of chopping someone's sister's head off for what was, I suppose, nothing more than a sort of jest, I looked at my toes for a time, embarrassed over this mistake. Well, as a knight, sometimes you have to admit your failings, you do. We all make mistakes. We're all learning. At the end of the day, we are all sinners. Are we not?
Speak for yourself, lad,
said Fenrir unhelpfully. Yes, Count. That I did. A gasp again rose from the crowd, followed by angry shouts. I think Percy would say something like it would be a hullabaloo. The Count stood and waved them into silence. Then you must die, said the Count to cheers and clapping. I was knelt now with my head on a block. My hands were tied behind my back. The wolf soul was nose to nose with me and pleading with me to change into my man-wolf form and simply leave. I'd explained that I need to do this for the people of the castle. He admonished me for being selfish. To him, there was a drum tolling in the background. When the drumming stopped, the sword, held by the hooded, scarred captain, would fall. At least it was a sword and not an axeman. I could count on the captain to take my head with one clean stroke with a sword. An axe may take several. The drum stopped. I heard the swish of the sword, but it stopped with a grunt from the executioner. There was a sort of cheer that quickly stifled and disappeared. I had my eyes closed, but if this was having your head cut off, it felt no different than having your head on. I didn't feel dead in any way. There was another swish of a sword and a larger grunt from the captain. There was a smell of a sweet fragrance of honeysuckle and rose. I opened my eyes. There was a beautiful woman kneeling next to me. Her arm was extended, and her hand was on the back of my neck. She noticed me, and she did smile, giving me a 3-finger wave from the other hand, followed by a finger on the lips, like my nursemaid did, to keep me quiet as a child. I turned to look at her a little more. Swish, thunk. The sword was hitting her hand, and simply stopping. She winked at me. Swish, thunk. I saw the captain stumble this time with the effort he'd put into that blow. What is going on here? I said more to myself than anyone else.
Oh, we're in real trouble now, Will. If she turns up, then, well, getting executed is like Least of your issues, to be honest.
Fenrir told me mentally. Why can't they see her? I asked him.
She is...
Here to help.
Said the most beautiful and mellifluous voice I had ever heard. The captain was in the corner of my eye. He had removed his hood and was using it to wipe his forehead. The sweat was rolling down his face now. He turned to the Count and simply shrugged. The Count was discombobulated. No, another word. Angry. No, another still. Livid he was, and I could see him vibrating in his seat. He jumped to his feet and stormed over to the platform, taking the soldier's sword. "Give it to me, you fool," he said. He looked at the sword and then lined it up himself on the back of my neck. The woman shrugged and smiled at me. The Count closed one eye, put his tongue out in concentration. He raised the sword above his head. In his hand, it was not the firm, steady strike of the captain, but the wavering slash of the untrained. Again I met the woman's eyes. Swish, thunk. The Count had swung so hard that he stumbled and fell on his face, he did.
Look at him.
Someone in the crowd laughed, but was silenced instantly by others shushing him. The cock went in to help the floundering Perigord. "Get off me, you fool," said the Count, flapping at the flapping cock who was trying to help him up. There was no dignity in his standing, and this was not helped by the cock taking a prodigious silk hanky from a sleeve and using it to dust down the Count's body. "Get your hands off me!" the Count screamed as he pushed the clown away. The Perigord now stood and stared at the crowd. His anger was evident. He dared them to find any of this amusing. I looked at the woman. She was worthy of being the last thing on earth that I would see, I can tell you. She was watching this show with a curious smile. She was enjoying herself. No concern was evident on her face at all. The sword had skittered from the Count's hand, and it had landed on the dirt off the platform. He straightened his hat and his clothing. "You, pass me that sword." He snarled at one of the guards who rushed over and came to the side of the platform. This was amusing in itself because the Count had to reach down and grasp the sword, and then the guard had to get on his little tippy toes to pass it to him. The Count's dignity was well, it was a thing of the past by now, I can tell you. He took the sword back to block and went through his prior procedure to take another swipe. Just before he raised the sword, he paused for a moment as he pulled his hat tighter on his head. Swoosh! Thunk! On a gallows now I stood. The platform had been quickly adapted to have a hanging post. The captain was back in his hood. He offered me a blindfold, he did. I smiled and shook my head. I had no need for it. He nodded his approval and invited me to stand on the barrel which would be kicked away, and with some reverence he placed the noose around my neck. Fenrir now sat next to the beautiful woman. She was invisible to everyone but me and the soul. It seemed I could sense there was quite a tense conversation going on between them, but I could not hear it. Booing rose from the crowd as the cock spoke of my evil doings. I must admit, he had a fine imagination, this boy. Finally, thankfully, he shut the fuck up. and the drum started its tolling and stopped again. The captain kicked the barrel, and there I hung. I hung in the air. I did not fall. There was something physically holding me up that I couldn't see, and neither could the crowd. I just hung there, as I could hear something struggling below my feet to hold me up from hanging. What is holding me up, Fenrir?
On balance, I think it's probably something we should keep between ourselves.
I heard the woman tell the wolf in his mind. I could see my wolf looking down at my feet, and then I looked directly in the eyes.
Well, it's not pretty, but tell you what, it's bloody, well, it's pretty strong,
he said. The crowd was stunned into silence. The executioner came over to me, hanging but not being hung, in the air, and he wafted his hand under my feet. There he felt nothing, but I heard a horrible little giggle as if something foul was having fun. The captain pushed me, trying to swing me on the rope, but I was held solid by whatever was giggling beneath my feet. The hooded man then embraced me and tried to move me, but nothing. Finally, there was a grunt of effort from whatever was holding me as the huge man took his weight from his feet and hung from me. I was now tied to the stake. Piles of kindling and firewood surrounded me. They covered it in oil, they had. The cock walked forward as the evening began to darken. He had a look of distinct pleasure and evil intent, he did. The crowd erupted into a bloodthirsty cheer at his approach. The woman I had seen before followed him, and just as he reached the fiery torch towards the wood, she blew it out, she did, and she clicked her fingers. The darkening evening suddenly cracked with a flash of lightning, a fantastic sight to see as a deluge of heavy rain fell from the sky. The crowd ran to shelter in distress, they did. The cock stood looking at me in the eyes, holding up his now damp torch. Oh, the hate he had for me in this moment was so apparent.
He don't look happy, do he?
Said the wolf soul.
He's gonna ruin that bloody lovely dress he's in if he's not careful. Hey man, get out at rain!
I lay now in the bottom of the pit. I was very uncomfortable with how full my belly was. I had eaten far too much, I had. The wooden pallets that had been used to cover the pit were removed, and to too much trumpeting in chorus, I was revealed. The cock and the count peered over the edge to see the result of me being thrown into the snake pit. They had come to remove my dead body and celebrate my death, they had. What they did not expect was me with a distended belly and the pit to be empty of snakes. They did not know that as the werewolf, the snakes were just a welcome snack to me.
If I ever see another snake, I'll be bloody sick,
said the wolf, and I know how he felt. They strapped me to a board in front of the count's dais. 5 crossbowmen aimed and fired. I felt 4 of the bolts hit the meat of my body with a crunching sound of tearing flesh. The 5th quarrel nicked my right ear. I focused on that one. The pain was intense as my muscles tensed and fought against the projectiles that had forced their way into my flesh. My body was different from that of other men. My body had the ability of the werewolf. It could heal the most grievous of injuries.
Push, William, push!
In my mind, the giant wolf soul was much like a surreal midwife at this moment, helping me give weird birth to the projectiles lodged in my musculature. The pain of their exit was much more intense than the hurt of their insertion. I yelled and screamed, which thrilled the crowd, it did. Their excitement was evident. The crowd was cheering at my death. But they went into silence as the arrows slipped from my flesh and tumbled pathetically to the floor. I yelled my defiance and laughed at them. This is not how this should go. Again, the invisible beauty was present. She was sitting near me on a straw bale and wasn't paying me any attention. She was reading a book and stroking a small black cat that was watching the show. She must be some kind of witch.
Huh? You're gonna bloody wish that she was a witch when you actually find out who she is, William.
Said the wolf soul with resignation.
Well, you satanic monster, the sorcerer has told us that you have sold your soul to the devil, and that is how you are not dying.
The crowd booed their anger at the brave cock's words.
Not yet, he hasn't.
Flashed into my head from Fenrir. Something that confused me.
So, we are going to take you back to you being a child.
The cock was a great actor and entertainer. Ooh, said the crowd.
Yes, when you were young, you were taken hostage, were you not?
He asked me. I couldn't answer because my mouth was bound.
Shame! Shame!
Said the crowd.
Your father,
He turned from addressing me to addressing those present.
is father,
He dramatically pointed at me.
his own father, did not even want him.
The crowd made crowdy noises of anticipation.
Today, we are going to reenact that moment of dialogue between his father, William Marshal, and King Stephen. Our pleasure, Captain Deimos of Limassol will play King Stephen.
The poor captain walked. No, not walked. He sidled onto the dais looking thoroughly embarrassed. The crowd clapped and his men laughed. At this point I thought the captain must hate the cock more than I did. In his hand he had a sheet of parchment. This man could read. A reading mercenary. It was only later that I learned that he'd trained as a priest. A story worth hearing, I must inform you. Captain Deimos stared at the cock, who was jumping up and down on the spot, shaking his arms as if preparing for combat. He finally stopped, and the murmuring crowd fell to silence. This kind of thing must happen quite regularly, I thought to myself. Eventually, after a period of quiet that hung on too long, the cock lifted his head and pointed at the captain. The captain licked his lips and looked at the script.
If you don't surrender, we will send your son back by trebuchet.
The cock paused. He took a great breath in and struck a dramatic pose with his hands on his hips. He paused. He changed his pose, striking himself on the chest as he did so.
I I still have the hammer.
The cock presented his prodigious codpiece.
And the anvil.
He pointed at some lovely courtly lady who looked a little humiliated by everyone's intense gaze and what the cock had said about her. The cock walked forward, raised his arms into the sky.
With the witch to forge still more and better sons than you.
He said as he dropped to his knees. A cheer and applause exploded from the crowd.
What the fuck?
Said the wolf in disbelief. He was sitting next to the witch. Yes, the witch. And I could see that they both could not believe what they were watching. From his sunk position, the cock raised his hands and waved his audience to be quiet. Once prepared and the people were quiet enough, he raised a hand again and pointed at the captain. The captain raised the paper and started to read. The herald stood and talked over the captain as he began to speak.
Unwag that there, my fine friends,
he said conspirationally to the crowd.
We will send him over the wall, and as a result, straight to hell.
The crowd went wild at this.
Ah,
Said the wolf.
that's why William's in the trebuchet.
He told the woman next to him, who nodded in agreement. The captain stared now, hatefully, at the cock.
I send a him.
He said, as he released the trebuchet that launched me into the air at breakneck speed towards the walls of the castle.